Hello, I'm Isaac Roche, and in this lesson we are going to be learning 6 chords in the key of G. And so from these chords you should be able to play all the songs that I teach in that key, the key of G. So let's get into it. The first chord we're going to learn is G. So we've got our middle finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string. We're going to put our first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. Our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and our pinky finger just right below that on the 3rd fret of the high E string. So that's G. But often I'll take my first finger off, and then with my middle finger, which is on the 3rd fret of the E string, I'll also drop it down a little bit to mute the A string. So that sounds like this compared to this. And lots of worship leaders will use this G with your finger off and the string muted. So that's the chord, the 1 chord, which is G. The next major chord I'm going to teach you is C. So what we're going to do is, if we're using our first finger and middle finger G, we're just going to drop our first finger and our middle finger down 1 string to play the C, which is C add 9. And then often, again, I'll take my first finger off and I'll mute the string below, which is now the D string. So we've got C. So that's the C chord, which is the 4. And then the other major chord is D. So I usually play a D sus4, which is what this is. So what I've done is I've kept my ring finger and pinky finger where they are still, and then I'm putting my first or my middle finger, doesn't matter, on the 2nd fret of the G string. And then I'm strumming the bottom 4 strings. So that's D, D sus4. I'm not strumming the E and the A strings because they're not in the chord. So, well, the A string is, but it just sounds worse because it's a low note. So we've got D, D sus4, and what I'm going to do is either just not strum those strings, or I'm going to put my thumb over on top of the E and the A strings. You might not be able to do that if your thumb is not long enough, if your hands aren't big enough, but that's one way to mute the strings so that you can be a bit more aggressive when you're strumming. So that's D, and then we have 3 minor chords. So we've got E minor, which is the 6. We have B minor, which is the 3. And we have A minor, which is the 2. So let's start with E minor, which is the most common one. It's the 6th chord. So again, just like the G and the C and the D, we're going to leave our ring and pinky fingers on the bottom 2 strings, 3rd fret. And then we're going to put our first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. And our middle finger is going to go on the 2nd fret of the D string. And then we're strumming all the strings. So that's E minor. If that's too hard, you can just take off your ring and pinky fingers. And that's also E minor. The next chord is the 3 chord, which is not as common but sometimes is used. And the easy version of B minor, which still sounds really nice, is putting our first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string again. We're going to put our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. And then we're going to put our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And then I'm not going to strum the E string or the E string. So what you do is, or what I do is I mute it. So I'm bringing my thumb over again and muting the E string up the top so you can't hear it. And then I'm dropping this finger, my ring finger, down a little bit to mute the E string. So that sounds like this. That's B minor, so that's the 3 chord. And then we have the 2 chord, which is A minor. So what I do with A minor is a little bit different to if you're just learning normal A minor. So in the key of G, you can keep your ring finger and your pinky finger, just like the first few chords, on the 3rd fret of the B and E string. And then you can put your first or your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. And then you can put your first finger or your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. And that gets A minor. You can also play a more normal version of A minor, which is where we have our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, our ring finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the B string, and then strumming all the strings except the low E string. So that's A minor as well. So just to sum that all up, we've got G, which is the 1 chord, we have C, which is the 4 chord, and D, which is the 5 chord, and then the minor chords we have are 6, E minor, the 3 chord, which is B minor, and the 2 chord, which is A minor. And those are the most common chords you'll get in basically any worship song in the key of G. So go back on some of those chords if you need to learn them a bit more. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video, and make sure you comment below on what songs you want me to teach next. See you next time.